Look at the sheer scale of modern Vietnam. It is a thriving, deeply connected global tech hub and a vibrant economic destination in Southeast Asia. Human history. The Vietnamese explain their survival through a powerful origin myth. Local legend states they descend from the union of a mighty dragon lord from the sea and an immortal fairy from the high mountains. This story instills a deep, permanent cultural belief that they are magically tied to their rugged highlands and crashing coastal waves. Stepping out of myth and into the archaeological record, early indigenous societies like the Dongsan actually did master this exact environment. They developed complex wet rice cultivation in the Red River Delta and became expert metallurgists long before any foreign empire arrived. This ancestral bond to the terrain served as their ultimate tactical advantage. For the next 2 millennia, the Vietnamese would use the very land they lived on to bleed out every empire that tried to conquer them. During a grueling 1,000-year occupation, the Chinese Han Dynasty attempted to erase Vietnamese culture and impose their own strict bureaucratic systems. The Vietnamese absorbed their agricultural and technological advancements, but they fiercely protected their local identity. A massive opportunity to break that rule arrived in 938 AD. Seeing the Chinese Southern Han fleet sailing down the Bac Dong River to crush local forces, a warlord named Ngoa Quyen devised a brilliant naval trap. This tactical map shows the layout of the Bac Dong River mouth. Ngoa Quyen calculated the local tides and ordered his men to plant massive iron-tipped wooden spikes deep into the riverbed. During high tide, these deadly poles remained completely hidden beneath the water's surface. Ngoa Quyen sent a few light boats out to taunt the massive Chinese armada, drawing them directly over the hidden array. As the tide suddenly receded, the heavy warships were impaled and ripped apart, leaving them totally helpless against a swarm of smaller Vietnamese ambush vessels. 3 centuries later, General Tran Hung Dao executed this exact same trap. In 1288, he lured Kublai Khan's seemingly unstoppable Mongol fleet right back into the Bac Dang River, impaling their ships and breaking the largest military machine on Earth. The Vietnamese survived the ancient world's greatest superpowers by absorbing their enemies' momentum and turning the native geography into an inescapable death trap. By the 19th century, a completely different threat arrived from the sea. French naval gunboats attacked the coast and established the colony of French Indochina. They seized the most fertile lands and forced the local population to work in brutal, subhuman conditions on massive rubber plantations. Seeking a way to liberate his people, a well-educated nationalist named Ho Chi Minh realized that communist anti-imperialism offered a strategic blueprint for resistance. He returned to his homeland and formed a fierce guerrilla movement known as the Viet Minh. The climax of the resulting First Indochina War occurred when the French military built a massive, heavily fortified base in the remote valley of Dien Bien Phu. They wanted to bait the rebels into open, conventional combat and crush them with superior artillery. But Vietnamese General Von Nguyen Giap orchestrated an impossible logistical countermove. His forces secretly disassembled heavy artillery pieces, dragged them by hand through the dense mountainous jungle, and reassembled them on the towering peaks directly overlooking the French base. When those concealed cannons rained hellfire down into the valley, the French were entirely trapped. The colonial regime was decisively destroyed in 1954. Once again, an industrially superior empire was defeated because they miscalculated the Vietnamese ability to weaponize an inhospitable landscape. Following the French exit, international peace accords temporarily divided Vietnam in half. Fearing a communist government in the north would trigger a cascade of similar takeovers across Southeast Asia, a concept known as the domino theory, the United States quickly escalated its intervention. The United States deployed overwhelming technological might against the insurgents. Through Operation Rolling Thunder, the American military indiscriminately dropped millions of tons of explosives on North Vietnamese targets and supply lines. This cross-section illustrates how the Communist Viet Cong neutralized that massive advantage from the air. They built and operated a sophisticated, multi-level network of underground tunnels, trapdoors, and hidden firing positions entirely undetected beneath the jungle floor. The physical war ground to a bloody stalemate, but the psychological breaking point hit in early 1968. The Communists launched the Tet Offensive, a massive, coordinated surprise attack on dozens of major South Vietnamese cities. Broadcast right into the living rooms of the American public, the sheer scale of the assault shattered the illusion that the U.S. military was winning. Domestic support for the conflict rapidly disintegrated amid widespread anti-war protests. The United States eventually withdrew its troops, and on April 30, 1975, North Vietnamese tanks smashed through the gates of the southern capital, reunifying the country under a single communist government. The Vietnamese exhausted the American war machine by avoiding pitched battles and enduring unimaginable punishment, fighting until the political will of their invader evaporated entirely. In the immediate aftermath of 1975, the newly unified nation faced intense isolation and poverty. Millions were dead, the landscape was heavily poisoned by toxic defoliants like Agent Orange, and strict state-planned economic policies were failing. This graph tracks their incredible economic recovery. In 1986, the Vietnamese government enacted Doi Moi, or renovation. They strategically abandoned hardline communist economics in favor of a market economy, sparking an immediate, explosive upward trajectory in their GDP. They normalized diplomatic relations with the United States in 1995, turning a bitter historic enemy into one of their most vital trading partners, and quickly evolved into a vibrant global manufacturing and technology powerhouse. Vietnam endured ancient imperial domination, the wrath of the Mongol horde, cruel colonial exploitation, and the destruction of superpower warfare. They absorbed the best technologies of their invaders and continually weaponized their own geography, rising from the ashes to earn the right to thrive entirely on their own terms.